Hola, ¿qué tal, Duval? Estamos aquí otra vez con nuestros chicos de Santos Bravos. They have been so busy with their Korean promo schedule. I feel like the first week felt kind of slow, but then this week too, they're like literally like promo, 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 promo. I know this week they're in. They just performed in M Countdown, and the next one is Music Bank, and then we're also gonna have them in Inkigayo. It's live already dropped as well, and also they're gonna be on show Music Core. So they have 3 more music shows that they're gonna attend. But right now I'm gonna focus on to me, I'm gonna say it's a surprise because I don't think it was scheduled. I don't think it was announced until it actually was about to air. They made an appearance on MBC's radio show. It's called what was it? Bae Cheolsoo 음악캠프, which is Bae Cheolsoo's music camp, which is why since it's a music camp, that's why they kept calling him 선생님, which means teacher at one point. And here's kind of like the reason why they were doing it, because, and it goes also towards a part of the conversation that took place between Bae Cheolsoo and the boys, is the whole honorific system that exists in Korea. So obviously the whole interview was amazing. Another they knocked out of the ballpark. Another amazing interview that they got to go on. I love that after coming off of Idol Radio, they were on this interview. It's like a totally opposite spectrum of the host, because in Idol Radio we had Eric from The Boys, who's like youngish. He's in his like 20s. And now they pivoted off to like MBC Radio with Bae Cheolsoo, who's already like in his 70s, I believe. So from young to older. So that was very interesting. But did I say it right? Bae Cheolsoo, yes. So you got to see them interact with like the both spectrums of the ages. In this case, just for you guys, if you're not familiar with Bae Cheolsoo, he was a very popular rock star back in his days, back in the 70s. And then in the 1990s, he went into being a DJ, basically like a radio host. And he's been hosting this show for 35 years already. So he's a very, very established radio host, because his program is syndicated. So you can hear it in a lot of places, not just in Korea. And I think at one point I'm not sure, I need to double check, but he was going to do a radio stream from Lollapalooza last year. So I don't know if that actually took place. I wasn't paying attention, but he's a very like well-renowned and respected musician in Korea. He's interviewed not only people like artists from South Korea, but also like worldwide, international, from the UK, from the United States. He stays on top of like what's in the music industry now, what's trending, the different trends of like the musical styles. So he's a very well-versed person. So it was perfect to interview them. And also I love that he mentioned that Santos Bravos was the first international group that he had interviewed since Take That. And Take That haven't been active, if I recall, like at least 20 years, because, you know, Robbie Williams went solo. But those of you who don't know who Take That is, it's kind of like, you know how in the United States we had New Kids on the Block, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and then kind of One Direction, even though One Direction is from the UK. Well, in the UK they had obviously the Beatles, and they had Wham with George Michael, and they had Take That. That was like the next generation of boy bands, if you will, but obviously they were like older already. So the fact that Santos Bravos is the next international group that he's interviewed is so cool, because that goes to show that his openness to interview this Latin group, but also the fact that having those opportunities that Hive is creating for them is amazing. Because if to be honest, if they weren't part of Hive, they wouldn't have platforms to appear in shows like this, because the way the Korea media works, if you're not from one of the big companies, they will not promote you. They will not put you on air. They will not put you on any music shows. They will not, definitely not like interview you. You're like in the sidelines. Their hierarchy is like, you're like down here. And I can tell you that from the history of BTS. Since they were not from one of the biggest companies, a lot of the times their performances that were taped were never aired. So even though they were there all day rehearsing and everything, the performances never aired, so it was like a waste of their time. Also, still to this day, a lot of the shows, like the networks that the idols appear in, they will not, the idol has to pay to go there. So they have to pay for their spot, which sucks, because it should be, if you're like, I'm promoting my music, why do I have to pay you? So a lot of the artists that end up going to the shows, they're doing it for free and at a deficit, because their company has to pay the broadcaster to please promote my idol, which, you know, it sucks. Either say I'm not gonna air your idol, or that, it's like so sad, the fact that it's, even to this day, like a lot of our idols have said that they've had to pay out of pocket their expenses to be on the show. So the fact that Santos Bravos is able to be an M Countdown, It's Live, Music Bank, means that now the networks are like, oh, this is a Hive artist, we want to be in good graces with Hive, so we're gonna let them perform, we're gonna give them a platform. Whereas before they would have been like, who are you nobodies, we're not gonna air you. So I think that's like one of the important things to keep in mind, because I know a lot of, as you guys are getting more into the lore, and like, obviously you're fans of Santos Bravos, so in Latin America is not as familiar unless you're a K-pop fan. A lot of the hate that the Hive gets, just because of the artists that are in the company, you will see it more and more. So I just want you to be like aware, just like don't pay attention to people that are hating just because they're from Hive. That literally, it's just adjacent hate, because they're upset that Hive artists get a lot more opportunities than other artists, and that's because Hive manages their artists well. So anyways, just went off on a whole tangent, but I love that they had the opportunity to be on this program. Like I said, the interactions with Bae Cheolsoo were so good, because he was asking like genuine questions, like he did his research, but the way that they were so comfortable like responding to him, and they were like with each other saying like, do you want to take this question? Yeah, you go ahead and take that question. You could tell that they were well prepared for whatever questions that got asked and how to answer them. I cracked up so loud. There was this one portion when Gabi told the host Bae Cheolsoo, he told him like, oh, you must love your job, you know, like you wouldn't want to leave it, you're like, you must love it. And he's like, yeah. And Gabi was like, what did he say? There were a couple of moments that things were lost. I don't want to say lost in translation, but they just weren't translated at all. And the boys were like, what is happening? Let's just sit here and smile. But just so you guys know, it wasn't anything bad. It's just that sometimes it's just like comments that the host would make with the interpreter that couldn't be really translated, because it's just like expressions like, oh, I don't know about that, you know. She wasn't going to translate like, oh, he says, oh, I don't know about that. It's kind of like a joke that it would lose its the funniness if they translate it. It was just like random like sayings that it was just like, oh, I don't know about that. So that was so funny. It was nothing like that the boys needed to find out about. It would just be like, it would get lost in the moment. Going back to what I was saying about the honorifics, that because he was asking them about, you know, in their culture, how it works out between like the maknae and the oldest, like that respect, because in Korea they have the honorifics system, which means to your elders, you always, and even when speech, with your elders, you always have to end up with, even when they like when they were saying 감사합니다, 사랑해요, you gotta use the yo or imnida. Whereas to your friends, and your friend has to be your same age, you would just say like 고마워, 사랑해, without the ending, with the honorific, without the honorific ending. But to your superiors, whether it's somebody 1 year older than you or your parents, your grandparents, you have to use the yo or the 씁니다. Now, when it comes to cases of you're talking to somebody that's in a profession, they add the 님. So like 선생님, it's like professor. A lot of times you'll hear PD 님, it's like producer 님, it's like the honorific 님, like showing a sign of respect that like, yes, this is your profession. So for him, since he's no longer a singer, they couldn't call him 선배, because he's not their peer anymore, because he's not actively a singer. But he's kind of like a music teacher, because he's like teaching the people that he interviews. He's like, they're learning off of each other, right? So that's why they were calling him 선생님. And he said, no, don't call me 선생님, don't call me teacher. That's like saying teacher in English, which is correct. But it's like they were probably told by Jessica, you know, this is like the proper respectful way to address them, because there's no way to say Mr. blah blah blah. It's yeah, you can't say like Mr. like in Spanish you would say like Mr. Aramburu, Mr. Venegas, Mr. you know. You can call them by like Mr. Peña. In English there's no Mr. title. That's why they add the nim at the end of their profession. So like if you're talking about to your at work, you're talking to your supervisor, you would say like also like the nim, whatever their title is, depunim, whatever their title, the nim, just their honorific. So that's why he told him like to call him ajushi instead, which is, I think it's kind of like, I don't know if it fit either, because ajushi is like, you want somebody young would call, if you get called ajushi, it's kind of like you're saying I'm old, you know? So like if a kid calls you ajushi, you're like, wait, are you saying that I look old? Usually you would want to be called nuna, or yeah, if it's a boy, you would want to be called nuna, or you want to be, you would definitely, or like oppa if you're a boy, you know. But ajushi is kind of like, yes, it's a sign of like you're an older uncle, but I feel like even it's kind of like harsh. I guess somebody translated that it's kind of like saying don, doña, but it's like it's kind of harsh, you know. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I noticed, that I was like, oh, that's kind of something that's culturally different, because like I mentioned, the honorific system, and it relates to them as artists, because that's why Gawe always says like BTS 선배님. Sanbe is for an artist that's like above you, that debuted before you. Hube is somebody that debuted after you. So they're the hubes of all of the hive artists, and all of the hive artists are their sanbes, because they're like if you're talking about school, they're like a grade above them, and it's a sign of respect. And that's regardless of your age. Like if you're both artists, and let's say for the majority of them, like Ali just turned 21, like the Jaehyun from Boy Next Door, he's younger than Alejandro, but he is his sanbe, because professional wise, Jaehyun from Boy Next Door debuted before him. Like the boys from N Team, like Maki, who else did they meet? Joe. They're their sanbes because they debuted before Santos Bravos. So that's kind of like the hierarchy that goes on in South Korea that they were referring to. And then another thing that I did notice was that I wish like they would get a little bit more taught on, especially Alejandro, our Korean loving Santito. He's trying to use like all his Korean, like use it while he can, which is amazing, which is good, because it helps you retain it. He told Bae Cheolsoo, he said like 만나서 반갑습니다, which means like it's a pleasure to meet you. And then when he was talking about food, there's also like culturally difference that I caught, because you say like, oh, we tried this dish, he tried like kimchi. In English and Spanish you would say like, oh, I love kimchi, I love, tacos. In Spanish, you would see like, me encanta el kimchi, me encantan los tacos, es mi comida favorita. But in Korean, you don't say 저는 사랑해. You don't say like kimchi 사랑해요. 사랑해 is only used when you're talking about romantic love or like love towards somebody. It's not used as generically as we do in Spanish or in English. We're like, we love everything. We love everything, The word 사랑해, 사랑해요 is only when you're talking to a person, telling them your emotions, that you love them either romantically or like because of your family or your friend. What you would say if you're saying like, oh, like if Kyle wanted to say like, I love kimchi, he would say kimchi 너무 좋아요, or kimchi 마음 들어요, which is like saying, I really like kimchi, I really enjoy it. He wouldn't say kimchi 사랑해요. So those are kind of like nuances that get lost in translation, literally. And obviously Alejandro is still learning. So he's directly translating like, oh, I would say it in Spanish, I would say, or in English, I would say it, I love, me encanta. Just like in Spanish, you don't say, amo el kimchi. You say, me encanta. In Korean, you don't say, 사랑해, 사랑해요. You would say, 너무 좋아요. I really like it. I like it a lot. So it's one of the things that kind of gets lost in your learning if he's learning on his own, or he's trying to like piece words together, like this is the word for love, this is the word for this food, if I put them together it says this. So at one point he did say like 사랑해요, and I feel like Bae Cheolsoo, he was just like, huh, what did he just say? Because again, Koreans don't randomly say 사랑해 just like that. People get cringed when they when your friend tells you I love you. They're like, no, don't say that. Why are you being so cringy? Why are you being so like googly? Why are you being so gooey? So that was one of the things that I noticed that I wanted to mention to you guys. But like I said, I love the interview, all the questions, the back and forth. The fact that they didn't have like a Spanish interpreter and it was just the interpreter that was with the studio and it was literally like English or Korean. They did so well with their English, like especially the longer answers that they were giving. And then translator being able to, you could hear that she was taking notes because they were talking so much. She was taking notes and everything they said, she translated it directly. So the host would understand everything they said, not just like, she didn't encapsulate it or shorten it or like leave things out, which also sometimes created like a pause when, especially when he was asking them things that just looked like blank, like, I don't know what you're saying. But she translated the questions correctly. And like I said, they were so well prepared with their answers. I feel like you could tell that he was like surprised in a good way, that like, oh my gosh, you guys are so young, but you're so well spoken and you're so well prepared. Them talking about, the whole, oh, I love how Gavi talked about, and even Drew, they talked about the getting trained in the K-pop methodology, and they focused on the positive side of it, which is like that it gives you discipline and it really shows you like Drew mentioned, like breaking through that mental barrier of like, I can't, this is my limit, pushing yourself past that limit so that you can, achieve the goal or like improve in the amount of time you need to be improving. I really like that they focused on the positive side, because yes, there is a negative side, and obviously Bae Cheolsoo knows this coming from being in the industry so long. Obviously things are changing and it varies per company. But yes, the K-pop methodology is like Gabi mentioned. You can have 12-hour days where you're rehearsing, whether your vocals or your dance or your choreography, or you're either like working out, but constant training. You're not just like goofing off. To some people, that might seem like excessive, but you're literally training. It's like an athlete that's training, for a goal. Now, what Bae Cheolsoo kind of hinted at the dark side is that obviously there have a lot of things come out from other companies. The fact that a lot of companies that are still active in South Korea haven't paid their artists. Like, they don't pay their artists. It can be like 2-3 years since they've been active and they haven't gotten paid, or they work in like really bad conditions, or their dorm rooms are like very, very small for like a large amount of people. Now, it's one thing if you don't have the money to house them, which was the situation that happened with BTS in 2013. They literally shared a dorm room with bunk beds to fit 7 people, but it's because the company didn't have money. It's not like nowadays that Big Hit became Hive and they have a floor for every label. And obviously now their dorm situations are much better for the people that are training there. They have like dedicated dance spaces. They have dedicated vocal areas. But there are other labels in South Korea that are still on the top 3 labels that still mistreat their the artists. They still are checking their weight, checking, like, they make sure that they're not eating because they need to fit a certain look. They have to be a certain weight. They always get weighed to make sure that they're not getting fat. They overwork them because a lot of them are like fainting during the performances or like look visibly sick. And like I said, they're not paying their artists. So there is the dark side of the K-pop methodology, but there's also the good side, which is kind of what Hive is trying to change in the system. Because even though there are long hours, it's like I said, it's like a job. It's like you're training for a marathon, but they have them in good conditions, in better conditions than what previous artists had. And they also make sure to have like an HR wing in their building where the artists can go for HR and like medical wing where the artists can go for their health checkups, and if they have like a sickness, if they feel sick, they can go to the doctor. They can go like to therapy. They can talk to somebody to help with their mental health, to help with like their stress. So that's something new that other companies haven't implemented, which goes to show like they're actually practicing what their tagline is, because their tagline is "We believe in music," or I think that's Big Hit. Hives, I think it's "We believe in music," but yeah, that's why I feel like the fact that Santos Bravos debuted in this company is a big plus for them, because they have all these resources, and obviously hopefully they will be transformed or translated to Hive Latin America. Even obviously they don't have the building there, all the bells and whistles, but hopefully they'll have the same support in Latin America that they do in Korea. So that's why I thought it was like so cool that Gavi and Drew talked about their experience with the K-pop methodology, even though it seems like it was short, only 6 months, but it was like a compressed time crunch for them to like, you have to adapt fast or you're not going to make it into the final group. So those were some of the things that I thought were kind of interesting. And then the last thing was that I loved that they mentioned their different influences. Obviously, Gaoi, our favorite army boy, he mentioned his mom in BTS. Like I mentioned in the previous video, he fulfilled his dream of finally seeing them in concert, and they just dropped the mini vlog of them being at the concert, like from going to the show to being at the show. And literally, Kawe is me. When the moment Spring Day comes on, like whenever the first time that I saw Spring Day live in concert, I was crying. So seeing him like that, I was like, oh, Kawe, you represent us so much. And I feel like that's kind of a similar situation that the Dual fans are having now when they're getting to go see them at the different events that they've been performing at, the festivals. It's like, I get to see you perform live, you know? And it's so cool that it's happening so soon, whereas for most of the fans, it takes like years for their favorite artists to come to perform in their country. So I was so happy to see Gawe fulfilling his dream. I'm gonna cry. Like, I literally, seeing him made me cry. It made me tear up, like, oh my god, Gawe. And the other 4 members just like hugging him and like supporting him. That was so sweet. So I love that he talked about that. Also, I was like so surprised, I was just as surprised as Kenneth at the fact that obviously he mentioned Luis Miguel, because how can you be in Mexico and not look up to Luis Miguel or not know who Luis Miguel is? But the fact that Bae Cheolsoo knew who Luis Miguel was, I was like, whoa, that goes where it goes to show you that he knows what's happening in the music industry. He's not just insulated in Korea. He's aware of what's happening around the world to be better informed and also be better prepared for when he speaks to his guests. So that was like, I was mind blown when I was like, oh my god, he knows Luis Miguel. Also love that surprise at Gavi. He was like, I love that each one of them kind of surprised him. Gavi's talking about how Elvis Presley is one of his inspirations, like, and you know, that helped him, like, motivation towards him being a singer, and even like he started singing some of the songs. That was so cute. And Cheyenne, gotta represent Puerto Rico with Cheyenne. I love that he went with Cheyenne and not the basic one that everybody's like, oh, Ricky Martin, that's the only Puerto Rican people know. But it's like, no, Cheyenne, he's like, everybody loves Cheyenne. There's not, I don't think Cheyenne has any haters, and if he does, they're fake, because I don't know why you could possibly hate Cheyenne. Like, he hasn't, I know of, he hasn't done like anything bad. Like Gavi said, he's like such a good human being, like a good role model. I was like, oh, go Gavi. Like, now the thing is, we all know he's Shakiro's because Shakira is his mom and his dad is Cheyenne, so he comes from a good family. And then obviously I love that Alejandro came with his references were like, he didn't go with like obvious super popular Western artists. He mentioned Raúl Belades, if I remember it correctly, and then Sol Estera. So the fact that he mentioned artists that the host wasn't aware of, he was able like, oh, you're not just like into pop music, you like other genres. That was so cool. And then obviously Drew saying like so many different people being his inspiration. Obviously Michael Jackson, Justin Bieber. I feel like everybody in their age bracket is a Justin Bieber fan, but also like Michael Jackson influence for Drew, who's a dancer. That makes sense. And he also mentioned Karol G. So, you know, I love that the variety that he mentioned, and his parents as well. So I think this was like another really good interview for people that were not aware of Santos Bravos or knew about them, to learn more about them, not only like where they're from, like country wise, but also like the company that trained them, what their experience during the training was, what their inspirations are, their musical genres are. So that because that kind of like gives you an idea of like, oh yeah, that totally matches each one's vibes. So that was those were my thoughts on the interview. I thought it was like really good. I'm so proud that they got another A+ interview under their belts. They didn't seem nervous at all. They seemed so comfortable, even though there were times when they're like, I don't understand what's happening. I'm just here for the ride. I'm gonna smile and just go with it. But the other thing that I loved about this interview, this episode, this session, was that they sang 4 songs, which I'm gonna go ahead and react to 2 of them, because Velocidade, nothing changed on that one, and nothing changed on, I'm not gonna react to them singing Everybody, because that's not one of their songs. So I'm gonna be watching the performance of Fe and 0%, because 0% was done acoustically. So we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. Okay. So we're gonna start off with Fe. I feel like Drew. I feel like I have something in my mouth. Kenneth's voice is so clear. His expressions. I love that he's using his body to help him like emote. I love how they're singing with such softness. Oh, Drew, his voice is so soft. I love how they're softening it up. They're soft in the verses and they break out in the chorus. Oh my gosh, the duets. The duets. I love Drew's voice. It's like so soulful, melancholic. I love his voice, Gaby's vocals. Oh, the falsettos! Kawa's ad-libs. Ah, Kawa! Oh, Kenneth, finish it out. Oh, I'm gonna cry, Kawa. That was so beautiful. That was so beautiful, you guys. I had already seen it, but oh, still like gets to me. Like I was saying, I love the way that they started soft during the verses, and then it breaks through in the chorus like sé que me equivoqué. I love that. That's when like I love the balance between like the soft vocals and the way that they're emoting. Like I've said, I love the color of Gaby's voice, that it's kind of like I semi-whisper, almost like he's hoarse, but that's just how his voice is naturally. They did such a good job of using that part of his voice for the vocals for the songs. They didn't tell him like, you need to work hard on your vocals because I need your vocals to be clearer. I love that it's like that breathiness of it because it's very natural. And then the same thing with Drew. This is something that I always notice about Drew that I keep forgetting to mention. I know back during the whole training episodes and everything, I was very like conflicted between whether both Kenneth and Drew could debut in the same group because of their ages. But again, I'm so glad that I was wrong. I mean, I didn't have a problem with any of the vocals. It was like the ages. I was like, is the age gap gonna look too weird? But like the way that Drew mentioned to the interviewer, the boys bring out the youthfulness in him, and you can tell because he doesn't look like, when you see him, you're not like, oh, this guy's 24. He's 24, 25. He doesn't look that age. He looks like he's in their age. Like Kenneth, you forget that he's 16. You forget that Kawa's 19. You know, they think they're like, these kids are all in like late teens, early 20s. But also the way that Drew sings is very youthful. That fits perfectly with everybody else's vocals. They have very youthful vocals and very like youthful and like almost like angelic vocals, which fits the name of Santos Bravos perfectly. Their Santos side, like right here for this song. So I that makes that like I knew Drew had to debut because of his dance, but I love that his vocals also fit in so well with the group because of how youthful they sound. They don't sound out of place. Whereas the other members that were in the top 10, their vocals sounded more mature and they wouldn't have fit with this group. So this is the perfect lineup, literally, because vocally they sound like they're in the same age range, but visually they'd also look like they're in the same age range. There's no member that looks like, oh, that guy is definitely older than them, or that you think he looks older and he's younger. All of these guys look very youthful. So that's one thing that I wanted to mention. Kawa, like this is a perfect representation of what I'm always talking about of Kawa's falsettos. People think that I'm criticizing whenever he uses them, and I've mentioned before, you have to save the falsettos for the right time, for the right song, the right moment. You don't need to throw it in to jam it into any song just to showcase that he has vocals. We all know he has vocals. Here is a perfect example of a good use of his falsetto, because it's not like sharp where you could totally tell like, oh my god, he's hitting those notes. It's very contained falsetto. He's hitting the higher notes, but it's very contained because they're not as loud, they're not as powerful. So he's maintaining his breath control so they come out in a soft tone, but in that high register. And that fits perfectly with the mood of the song, like this very like melancholic tone of the song, because it's talking about like, you know, faith, having faith about like maybe a lost love, like Alex said, or maybe like faith that like that type of love will find you again. The way that he was doing his falsettos, they didn't sound super sharp and like overpowering. They fit perfectly with the song, and I love the way that they layered them so they would be kind of like backup vocals and like ad-libs, and then having the difference between Kenneth and Kawa's different vocal tones finish with those like a little bit of ad-libs towards the end was perfect, because it's Kenneth's softness in his voice, but then also that high falsetto, but like a soft falsetto with Kenneth. It just like wraps up the song perfectly and just leaves you in that feeling. So I love this performance of Faye. I'm glad Faye's finally getting to shine and people are getting to see it, and like the fans that are watching this, obviously just not Dual, but like the fans that are the normal audience for MBC Radio are seeing this group for the first time, and they're like, oh my god, these guys have vocals. Which leads me to another point that I just remembered. I saw a comment that I was kind of like, I don't understand why people got to put other people down just to hype up. But I saw a comment that said like, oh, they're the first vocal group of Hive. Like trying to act like other Hive groups don't have vocalists. Like as if Heesung doesn't exist, as if JK, Jungkook, like perfect pitch doesn't exist. Just because they're not always belting ballads doesn't mean that Hive doesn't have good vocalists. Sometimes the songs that they are given are not vocal heavy, but that doesn't mean they can't sing. Like Taehyung V from BTS, if you guys have heard his solo songs, especially during the Love Yourself era, he's their vocalist. But Hive is gonna do a mix of ballads and a mix of like up and pop and poppy dancey songs, because that's their formula, you know. They're a performance-based group, so you're gonna see them have good dance choreos, synchronized dance choreos. If you guys have seen the dance practices, they're gonna have good vocals, they're gonna have catchy songs, but they're also gonna have their ballads, their lower, you know, there's ballads that just make you like sit down and like strip it down and just focus on the vocals, because they do have vocals. So I love that Santos Bravos is showcasing that, yes, we were created through the K-pop methodology, but we also can sing ballads, because in Latin America, Latin pop, ballads are very, very popular. Whereas having those choreographed poppy dance songs are the ones that are a little bit out of the norm for Latin boy groups. But anyways, the next one that we're gonna take a listen to is 0%. And I love that Ali brought out his guitar so to show his musicianship. Like very stripped down.
Come on. Venga.
And the ad-libs.
Vístete que hoy vamos a salir, sí, sí, sí. Te tengo un plan, imagina.
I love his Justin Bieber hairdo.
En el camión con tu canción en repeat. Dame una
Vibrato.
sonrisita, bebé, que te ves más bonita, feliz, sí. Yo solito me río. Cuando me dicen que esto no es vida. Si me ven amanecido, déjenme que ahí es donde quiero estar. El sol va saliendo, tengo el celular.
Harmonies.
0%, pero no pasa nada.
And the softness.
No tengo video, pero esta noche no se nos va a olvidar dónde quiero
you guys notice Alice's vocals are clear and the other ones are softer. Oh, Gabe. Drew always makes me smile.
Esta noche hay que pensar en lo que ya pasó. Vítete, ey. Está mejor.
I forgot the lyrics.
Lo que diga, que la gente siempre va a hablar.
El que puede y el que no va a criticar.
Sí, sí. Yo solito me río. Cuando me dice que soy vecina.
Oh, I love it, Gabe. Professionalism. The harmonies. I love Kenneth's backing vocals.
No tengo video, pero esta noche no sé, nos va a olvidar donde quiero estar.
Like the harmonies, you could hear all the layerings of the voices. Again, the falsetto, but like very well placed.
Eso va saliendo, tengo el celular, cero por ciento, pero no pasará.
That's the head voice.
No tengo video, pero esta noche no sé, no va a olvidar dónde quiero
Kenneth with the
estar.
ad-libs.
Quiero estar, donde yo quiero estar.
Gabe
Donde yo quiero estar. Esta
with the
noche,
riffs.
esta noche, donde yo quiero estar. Donde yo quiero
Oh my gosh, I love the arrangement.
estar. Donde quiero estar. Hey.
Oh my god. It was an accident, but it was like, it worked out so perfectly. Gabi forgot the lyrics. He was singing the lyrics from the first verse, and then he was like, wait, what? But he caught it. He caught it, and he sang his portion. The other members, Gabi was like laughing, literally. Yo solito me río, no, Gabi. Todos nos reímos contigo. But I love that he was able to still sing amidst the laughter. And it kind of like lightened the mood. Not that it was like a heavy song, but it just like made it more like playful. And it was like, yeah, this is how we deal with, we make mistakes. You know, we're live, we made a mistake, we're just gonna roll with it. And the fact it just like lightened everything up. Everybody was smiling at the end. I love that. Literally, Gabi, an accidental mood maker. I loved his face. He was like, wait, that's not the lyric. Oh my gosh, I love the arrangement. I love the way that they always, Alejandro's vocals are always very like clear and sharp. He hardly uses the vocals that is like to soften his voice. Whereas Gabi and Kenneth, they have especially because of Gabi's vocal color, it's almost like he's breathless when he sings, but it just gives it that very special vibe, especially when it's like a stripped down song like this one. And then you have Ale that breaks through that softness and just is like very crystal clear vocals. And then Gabe builds on top of that because his vocals are also very crystal clear, but then he hits those falsettos. And I love that, again, in this arrangement, they had him use like his higher notes, but they weren't like super high pitched where it's like, okay, that's a little too much. It was a soft, like high register that made the song like even more melodic and like more, obviously it was stripped down a little bit, like slowed down from the original tempo. So it made it like rounded it out perfectly. And then the way that they were layering their vocals and like Kenneth and Kawe were doing ad-libs in their own different vocal ranges, you could tell that Kenneth was making sure to measure the volume of those high notes because he would pull his mic away. Whenever it was like he was hitting a high note, he will pull it away so it wouldn't be as shrill and as sharp, and it wouldn't overpower the main vocal that was happening being done by Drew or by Alejandro. So that's what having good control and a good arrangement using those falsettos, that's what it looks like. You don't have to, the falsetto shouldn't be overpowering the main vocal, but it can still shine on its own because you still hear it. You still hear it, and you're like, even if it's in the background, you're like, oh my God, who's the one hitting those notes? You know, it sounds so beautiful. It sounds so soulful, so soft, but like so contained, but yet still like you could tell that it's up there. So I loved their two performances, very like stripped down, very, especially Alejandro with the guitar, showing that like we're not just like pop singers, we actually have talent, we can play instruments. Again, showcase their vocals, their vocal talent, their vocal ranges, their vocal control, the control of being able to like go with the flow when there's an accident. And I love that it ended in like this kind of like silly note that, oops, I made a boo-boo, but they're all like super happy and smiley, even though Alejandro looks a little shy. But anyways, those were the performances for Fe and 0% on MBC Radio. I think, yeah, I don't know what else I'm missing. I'm sure I'm missing stuff because they're, like I said, they're dropping things left and right, one day after the other. There's things that we need to vote for the awards that they have been nominated for. Performances still, like I mentioned, in Music Bank, Inkigayo, Show, Music Core. I have to watch its live performance. I don't know if, I think they did Velocidade, so I'll probably react to that one later since I think it's like without instruments. I haven't watched it, so depending on what the style is, because I don't want to react to the same song over again if it's the exact same performance, you know what I mean? So I'll check it out. I know I still have to check out their performance on M Countdown. I know that they did the very first Ending Fairies. I know some of the fans were disappointed that they weren't able to go, but like I said, a lot of since especially for M Countdown, if you guys noticed, the lineup was stacked. A lot of the performances are pre-taped just because the taping goes for so long. So obviously also they probably didn't expect that they would have a fan base in Korea, so that's probably why they didn't invite fans to go. And they also probably had like a very short, maybe like 1 or 2 takes that they were allowed to do for the performance. The ones that probably did have a fan base there was TXT. I'd love that they, at least towards the end, when it was like the portion where the winners were announced with the fans present, we got a little bit of Santos Bravos and TXT crumbs, because after I don't remember what girl group won, because like I said, TXT was too early to be nominated. And the same for Santos Bravos. They weren't going to be nominated for this week. But I love that when they're announcing the winner, they have all the artists on stage. And after the winner was announced, the artists that didn't win exit the stage so that the winning artists can have their encore stage where they sing the song again. But I love as they were exiting the stage, I don't know if you guys caught, we had Santos Bravos meeting TXT, like finally like in person, chatting, you know, because even though they've done challenges just like on video, they haven't actually met. So that was the first time like that we see them meeting. Hopefully, I know that TXT has been busy preparing for their comeback, which was just happened this past Monday, which is probably why that we haven't seen an interaction with them. But hopefully we see something like with them in the dance practice together, especially now that TXT dropped their album. Hopefully we get a dance challenge, unless there already was one, or like forgot already, because like I said, there's so much going on. But so excited for what else they have, because they have 1 more week left in Korea, so I don't even know. Also they were just announced to be part of a Weavers festival in Japan, so they're gonna be there with, I think, TXT, Islet, and Team. So I gotta figure out how we're gonna see that, because I don't know if if that's gonna be televised or streamed anywhere. But anyways, what did you guys think of their appearance on MBC Radio with Bae Cheolsoo? The whole interactions, the interview, the questions. how they did with the interview, like responses, the performances. I know we already love them. Let me know if I missed anything in the comments, and I will see you next time, Dual.